Now that was some high-spirited, good-natured fun, and and some very, very weird approaches to certain things, but like just very joyous. And yeah, I really loved it all the way through. There's so many fun things in this. Great work, Nick. So let's talk about this beginning here. I don't think you need duet flutes. I think you just need a single flute. Like, listening to the mock-up that has this beautifully personal, lovely, emotional kind of a sound with the way that you've scored it, and of course the playback kind of doesn't really know any better but to just interpret that as a single flute, no matter what we put on it. However we mark it, but it just a single flute is going to work a lot better with this combination of winds. Yeah, I think other than that, it works pretty nicely. I love that the kind of cool sound of the lower winds below and the flute on top. It's a really nice combination. Okay, so now we go into more winds. Dolce oboe, right? Da 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 da. Right, and here you've got your clarinets coming in. Yeah, it's yeah, by not going all the way up, you're sort of putting you're putting your C on the bottom and just kind of letting the overtones do the work. And then you've got your bassoons going on here. Not sure if I'm totally behind that, but that's all right. Yeah. I mean, could you possibly have like not slurred bassoon? Just to get a little bit more energy going in there. Yeah, and I think you don't need to mark legato. It is the implication is there by the da. How else could you be marking it, right? However, if you were to mark it, you would mark it in the expression text rather than the technique text above, right? I mean, this is really nicely scored. It has a beautiful sound to it. Yeah, I mean, a nice combination, clarinet and flute, and the harmony and everything is going to work just so long as everybody just kind of stays very soft. All right, then the flutes will have a chance to balance with the other instruments. It's not a bad combination at all. All right, so here we're getting to yada da 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 da. So this, I heartily approve of this. I'm not so sure that you really need to be, unison with these lines. You get a phased effect with the clarinets. You get a kind of a very hard, kind of snappy sound with the oboes that isn't necessarily like, twice. You don't get twice the punch, right, out of your staccatos. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. I mean, it's okay. It works. It's fine. But do you really want separate notes here? Ya da 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 da. Or maybe some slurs on there. Da 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 da. Here we're running into a similar problem to a score that I looked at in the last evaluation. I can't remember which one it was. It was the one just before the one before that. But are you setting up the next these lovely eloquent chords with with an increased sense of harmonic density, or are these parts just operating completely independently, right? And you have to really watch out for this, Nick, because like here you've got this sort of wind band approach going, and so since you're kind of reusing a lot of the same textures and so on, like bassoons throughout, and then like having this combination of flutes and clarinets again, and then sort of trade off between flute, clarinet, then bassoon, and then oboes and so on. So like you have a certain amount of continuity, but then when you go to the strings here, like the strings almost feel like a separate thing. They're really not very strong. Like, I mean, why do they need to be pianissimo, right? Why can't they start off even mezzo piano and build in terms of density of texture, so that by the time you get here to the horns and the trumpets and so on, that there's some mass, right? It doesn't just go from kind of weaker strings to eloquent but bulky brass right in here. The projection will, it's not lying to you. It really will be just a sudden kind of jump to a different kind of a texture. So I think that this area right in here might be needing a little bit of work. Is there a more emphatic color of line here? I don't think so. Right? I think it's just very, it's very laid back, and this needs to push into this statement here, so that this is just very, very, it's like I was saying, eloquent, so that you just really feel the dignity and so on, right? So it sets it up rather than it just coming from out of nowhere. Yeah, there was this one other thing I just wanted to kind of go over, and some of the evaluation criteria here, like does the intro set the mood up effectively? Does the melody start with elegance? Yes. I mean, especially with your kind of wind band approach for the first 10 bars or so. I think that like the wind opening is really effective. It's the first one that I've heard that it's just completely winds from this challenge. And then, like, is there a natural flow to the bassoons? It is nice. I mean, it's interesting how you're doing this slurring, but then it seems to me that you're following the score without really thinking about the fact that you have the right to decide, right? So like did you add slurs here because there were slurs in the left hand, and then leave them out here because they were left out in the left hand? Right? You don't just do what the score says. Like, I mean, you have the ability to have this beautiful flowing, this harmony and melody and everything else, with the bassoons going ba 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 ba, no slurs at all, right? I would do a dovetailing on the downbeat, or not on the downbeat, on the on beat. All right, so da 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 da. That so just trade like right here on the 3. Like it's just easier with the conductor conducting and so on. Like they can feel the beat coming, and then trading off on it is much more effective. Right. So did this contrast with the theme? And so I mean, the contrast of kind of scope was enough here, I would say, even though we previously used these colors and so on. And yeah, and you didn't really need any harmonic support, and you harmonized these lower lines, which I thought was wonderful, right? So yeah, so that just takes us back to this, and you do some back and forth right in here, which is nice. Do you really need to have slurs over this? I mean, Beethoven has slurs over his chords, but that doesn't mean that it's like the piano is a percussion instrument, right? So it will naturally, like when Beethoven is putting the slur over it to make sure that it isn't too choppy. But you don't really need the slur if you want to have this, just very proud kind of statement. It doesn't have to be choppy either, but bum bum bum, right? Doesn't that make more sense with horns and trumpets and so on, rather than dum? And then here you have like tenuto staccato, dun, da, 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 right? Doesn't it kind of... Anyway, so just think about it. Now here, you absolutely do not need this note here, right? It's just like, what does Beethoven do in the original score? he has the chord, and then he has the melody start on the second beat. Da 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 bum bum. When you have this note starting on the downbeat, you're kind of giving it away, right? So it doesn't start fresh. If you know that this D has like nothing to do with the harmony that is happening before it. So like the harmony, like when you state it here, you don't get a chance for the harmony to kick off the melody coming in on the second beat, right? Bum da 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 dum bum bum. See, and this part in here like is also robbed of the sense of trading off, right? So it's like harmony, melody, harmony, harmony, dan da dan, right? So this is also set up like a second beat incidents, right? So I'd say just kill this note, right? It's completely unnecessary. And cute little triangle stuff and muted. There's no problems with that. It's all good. Timpani, that's fine. All right, so going on to this, like this is where it gets really amazing. Um, yeah, so like you don't even worry about the whole question of dovetailing and and anything like that. You just gonna go for these trills, like half step trill here and then another half step trill. You do need to add a slur here, right? And I mean, do you really want these to be da 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 as opposed to da? I don't know. But I mean, of course, you've got this dun 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 dun. That's fine. So did you notice like the harmon mute with the stem and so on? It just kind of didn't come through the mock-up, and it's probably not going to in real life either. Right? It doesn't really have the power. If you've got trombones going da 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 da, and along with bassoons and just like this sort of these back and forth uh, intervals and so on. Yeah, it's and then this trill above, right? And this it's really just taking up a lot of the space above. So that what is extraordinary about a harmon mute is its like crispness and absolute trebly sound, right? Just the trebliest sound. Well, those trebly sounds are overtones wisping above the instrument. It's like really not the fundamental at all, right? It has very little power. Go check out, Nick, you must have a copy of my 100 More Orchestration Tips, right? So just go check out, where I diagram out how the different, how different heavy brass mutes, what they do to the basic waveform, right? So, the thing about it is that those overtones, like if you've got this kind of scorching half step trill here, it is just playing hob with all of those crisp, wonderfully stripped out overtones above the harmon mute. So yeah, so this is basically killing the benefit that you would get from your harmon mute. And then the same thing here, the trill comes back, harmon mute is just kind of wasted on that. Maybe a straight mute would work better. I don't know, but or just a or just a trumpet sound. I mean, like if you want this harmon mute thing to contribute to the coarseness and the shrillness of this trill, then it's fine. Then leave it in. Yeah, and this is kind of cool. Just throwing in a little bit of piccolo and flute and so on. Yeah, I mean it's just really really fun. It's very cinematic is the wrong word. It's very dramatic, like in a almost like sort of reminds me of like a dramatic overture, right? That might be composed in the Romantic period. Yeah, and then you're bringing in more and more brass, right? With this, and yeah, and those xylophone part right in here. Uh, you know, this would take a lot of wood shedding. Just speaking on behalf of the mallet percussionists whom I've worked with, they just would require some practice. Like this, like if you're going to get your score read, you might want to simplify this, right? Just or maybe split it between two different percussionists. Maybe one of them could be on um, a different mallet instrument. With a xylophone taking the top part and them taking like maybe like a maybe like a vibraphone on like with harder mallets and a dry sound. Anyways, but it's still a very very cool. And then this just kind of racing towards the end is very very cool. Yeah, it gets. I still love the fact that you've spread out the harmony here, right? You haven't let it clump towards the bottom. That was really the main thing that I was very, very worried about. Yeah, and then like getting here, you wouldn't leave a big hole in the harmony as things rush towards the end. And like those my concerns about dovetailing and and treating different parts of the patterns as different functions, possibly with instrumental timbre and emphasis on the middle note. Like some things are moot, some things were very well taken care of. So some things just completely don't apply because you came up with your own approach, including this wild stuff right in here. I thought that was very very fun. Just adding a bit of chaos to that. I think that was really effective. So, and then just snare and so on with a bass drum hit at the end. I think that there were some opportunities here for timpani, possibly with this approach. And I think that your lower winds could have been reinforcing the strings down here and tuba and bass trombone parts. I think you kind of you know maybe you just ran out of time, but like you definitely could have filled this in. And also, why did the xylophone just stop? Right? Maybe you felt you didn't need it, but I mean, it just kind of like once it's like the problem with the xylophone is once it stops, you notice that it's gone, right? Just immediately. It's almost like, why did the xylophone player stop? Did he drop his music or something? Right? Like the player wants to know. So like even if you just came to this game, played one more note on the downbeat here or something. Yeah. So, other than that, I didn't see any real huge problems, but I'm hoping that if there are any that I missed or didn't have time to talk about because I got distracted by something else, that other viewers out there will comment below and, maybe anything that I missed, anything I didn't address because I'm coming from a different place. Any thoughts about Harmon mute being swallowed up by very shrill playing above? And any other suggestions, comments, compliments, especially, don't feel that you have to reserve any kind of feedback on this. Just, if you are a beginning orchestrator or you don't really know that much about it, if you liked it, you should tell Nick, right? And Nick, I mean, same token, like think of all the other people who are supporting at this level and are contributing scores that are similar to yours, at least in terms of the length and the selection, like how much they would appreciate your comments on their scores. And I've already told them on their videos to comment on your score. So if you could just watch everything at this level, the semi-brev level, and comment in each other's, that'll be half a dozen comments right there under each video, and people exchanging ideas. So just remember, folks, just, if you're participating in this challenge, watch the other videos, try to listen to the different things that I say about it. Just because somebody scored something in a different way doesn't mean, than you did, doesn't mean that it all isn't in the end sort of educational. All of my blabbing aside, just educational to watch what they did and see what their choices were and how and why they made them and so on, right? So, anyway, so that's my take on this. So it just remains for me to thank you, Nick, for being such a great supporter. of orchestration online and being part of the community for all these years, and sending interesting scores my way. And I also have had a chance to look at some of your own stuff, which is great, and hoping to work you into a live evaluation session soon with what you sent me yesterday. And it all really helps. Seriously, folks, like, supporting on Patreon is, without that, I wouldn't have time to do this. I mean, I kind of don't have time to do this, but I'm making it work, damn it, because I love doing it. I love helping you guys, and I love the really wonderful sense of community that builds between all our orchestrators, and people sharing different resources and everything else. So thank you, Nick. Thanks for the effort that you put into this score, and I will see everybody really soon with the evaluation of another great entry.